So we hire for motivation. We don't hire for process or skill set. I hire for grit because I want a particular mindset for people when they arrive at Pearl Lemon. And if they don't have that, they don't pass through. The people that are self-motivated will do it on the one ask. The people that need more pushing will do it on the second or third ask. And the people that are kicking and screaming probably shouldn't be at your firm anyway. So you've got a recruitment problem, which means you've got a mindset problem, which means you've got a hiring problem. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. So I invested 30 grand up front to be like, right, I'm invested now. I've just ponied up 30 grand. That's the kind of monetary level that I need to care. I could have done other stuff, and that led to the kind of 1,000 hours. So I think that a lot of founders probably aren't. If you're not doing that, then that's the problem. And if you're not motivated to do it, money, because when you pay attention. There's such a big play right now about personal brand. I think the personal brand becomes a machine that you have to feed, and it attaches you, not detaches you from your business. So in growing your personal brand, your company loses enterprise value and it doesn't become a sellable asset. And it means that you need to keep feeding the brand. So the more you can detach yourself and become invisible to your company, the more you can increase enterprise value of your company.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Deepak, for joining us on another episode of the Agency Growth Club. As I said, you were on a webinar with my team recently and they were like, you need to get Deepak on and talk about more agency side, more AI, everything that's going. So you've been put in the hot seat. So please, right. So from a quick version, you've got 7 companies, 134 people working with you. You're at the forefront of what AI is doing. So for any of the viewers that kind of don't know who you are or haven't seen your name, give us the 30-second rundown of who you are.
Yeah, sure. My name's Deepak Shukla. I run 7 companies that do anything from 5 up to 7 figures a year. I typically tend to roll out one new business every 18 to 24 months. And SEO has been really the main driver for the growth of all of those businesses. And we can get into exactly how that has played out.
Awesome. Right. My favorite format when I'm listening to podcasts is just to get straight into the questions. So that's the relationship building part of it. So Deepak, I've seen Pearl Lemon everywhere. I'd love to dive into your client acquisition process first. So I've seen a stat that I think you've built out over 1,000+ public reviews when it comes to Pearl Lemon.
Yeah.
So reviews is a big thing that some people feel, some people feel uncomfortable asking about it. Some people are like, oh yeah, we did work for that person down the line. Like, but maybe we won't put their case study anywhere or whatever. You guys have gone super, super aggressive with it, where you've asked like podcast hosts, partners, clients, everybody to leave a review. Can you walk us through that system, but also tell us like how aggressive you are with it and how that actually equates into becoming a lead engine?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I think the premise that sits underneath it for anyone who's an agency owner is read several books on sales, because ultimately convincing people to spend some time to leave a review is an act of persuasion. It's not an act of automation, because automated emails to ask people to leave reviews in service-based environments just doesn't work, basically. So I think that the first thing that I would recommend for every agency owner is improve your skill of selling to then improve the amount of clients that you get to then ultimately execute all of that SEO talent that you do have. So I think that that's kind of what I would say is a meta skill that then translates into the actual act of getting reviews. So we do it aggressively. I think that understanding like TOS, terms of service, is really important. So i.e., anyone that you give advice to, whether it's a paid engagement or not, where they feel that they benefit from your advice as someone that you can meaningfully ask for a review from. So that then doesn't just mean every client. It means every prospect that you have an engaged actually conversation where you do deliver some value on the call, i.e., the bigger proportion of a lot of people's leads are people that don't quite have the budget, but everyone's looking for useful advice on a call. So why not then use that as a mechanism to say, look, I'd really appreciate if you're able to leave me a review. And when they built a good rapport with the person, then that's great. That's number one. Number two, anyone who is technically, for example, a contractor, subcontractor, partner to the business, anyone, you could ask them to, for example, leave reviews on Glassdoor as well as Indeed, because they're working for you. So we have everyone, once they've been 8 weeks into the business, we ask them to leave a review, and we then, of course, get hundreds of reviews over the time, because we have people that come in. We've got our FTEs, which are 134, but at any given time, we rotate between contractors to various bits and pieces of work that we just don't deliver ourselves internally. So we do those 2 things. And then outside of that, with our physical businesses, we will get and ask people to leave reviews on their phone while they're at an event that we're delivering. And that's been also a huge mechanism. So they would be kind of the free, and treating finally reviews like a sales conversation. So clients won't leave reviews if you send them an email, but if you write something, send it to them, ask if they approve it, and then get on a call with them and get them to leave it whilst they're in front of you, then they'll do it. And you've got to be comfortable doing that, assuming obviously they're happy and all of that type of stuff. But they would be kind of the mechanisms. And then to your point about how does that then translate into a lead gen engine? Well, you can rank on Trustpilot for services based upon reviews. Of course, everyone knows the impact that reviews has from a search perspective. And then I would say that the biggest part of that is the second order effect of once you acquire a lead is a natural thing that they do look at, of course, is your reviews. And then that has, of course, an upward impact of how you appear in the LLMs. So I would say that outside of, let's call it keyword ranking strategy, so discoverability, I would say that the second biggest skill in the wheelhouse is having great reviews. And that's what helps our team convert that much easier, because you come on, you're like, you guys have got hundreds of reviews and you're ranked really well. And there's a lot of things that are true that they believe about you, but there's also loads of assumptions they make about absolutely everything else. So that's kind of our strategy in terms of review building across our entire ecosystem.
Awesome. I love that. And I don't know why there is that. So like, again, I've got people on my team where I'm like, we've just done a good job. Can you reach out and get a review? And they just feel uncomfortable about it. It's like, it's almost as if it's like cringy to do, but literally what you said, the social authority that you get from people leaving good reviews is like, it's so valuable. And I think what you just said there as well about even people that are working with you for 8 weeks, where you send them to ask them for a review of like working on the company. I think it's so interesting because, first of all, I've never heard of people doing that. It's always the other way around. Like if you go on Glassdoor, it's nearly always negative reviews, because like company owners aren't asking your team to like leave a review until like they go. And it's normally when somebody's got fired or whatever, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna leave some nasty review.
We have it in onboarding. Onboarding, if you go and work at Pearl Lemon, at week 8, you're asked to leave a review. You're asked to record a video about your experience with Pearl Lemon. The video has to be at least 7 minutes long. It can't be AI. It's got to be you talking to the screen. We don't care about format. And over time, that just scales really, really well, because obviously from a recruitment perspective, it works, but all your clients see it as well, because of course it just appears. And I think that you will always, I say always, there will always be pissed off people along the journey that will leave maybe a negative review or two, especially as you grow. And being honest, especially as I've stepped out of any day-to-day operation and every single project isn't delivered at the level that I want because things happen. And then there'll be a proportion, let's say 10% or less, so 1 in 10, where they'll be like, you know what, I wasn't happy for X, Y, Z reason. A simple example, recently we had 3 account managers, 2 of them got married and 1 of them got divorced all at the same time, literally within 4 weeks of each other. And that had a massive impact on our client work. That was in our agency specific, of the like 5 or 6 account managers that we got. And there was blowback from that I only became aware of after the fact. So we did get 1 negative review, but what do you know? We've got 113 others that are pretty good. So it's that balancing act. And I think these are just things that as you grow, you can't please everybody. You won't be liked by everybody. You will, if you grow quickly, expect chaos. And if there's chaos, you're not always going to have premium delivery every time. And some things just like this happened, where I didn't anticipate there'd be this type of life event. And I think that's where like reviews will really kind of carry you. And it's kind of bread and butter for what we do. We try and go and give free advice when we incorporate a new company, and then we go and get reviews from the first 10, 20 people that we speak to, and we'll try and do that in the first 8 weeks of starting a new business. And if we attach people from other departments to that business, we'll say, well, technically you fulfill Glassdoor and Indeed's terms of service, so let's put you as a reviewer. Brilliant. And then all of a sudden you can start spinning up reviews, and they're all legitimate. It's just about being proactive about it, I think, and not, as you said, being shy and nervous. And then again, it's like, well, how do you do that? It's dude, you got to get comfortable kind of like selling, basically, because it's kind of, people won't do it out of the goodness of their heart. Everyone's lazy. Everyone's got priorities. Their priority isn't their review unless you put your face in front of them and say, hey, could you really help me? I'd really appreciate that, Josh. So yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
I love that. Okay, that's the first bit of value to take away from that episode. That's something I'm actually going to take and incorporate from after this. So fantastic. My next question for you, Deepak, is podcasts.
Yeah.
You've been on loads of podcasts as a guest, and from my own experience, podcast is a great way to build relationships and actually get leads as well. But from your side, to agency owners that are listening that maybe want to get on podcasts, or maybe they're not even thinking about it, but from your side, one, how do you get booked in on podcasts? And two, can you actually track revenue or leads back to it?
Okay, so for the first one, of course, research. Practically, we've got a PR team, and they'll go out, do individual research, send outreach emails, confirm positioning with me, ask me to give broad positioning that could suit, let's say, SEO as a cluster or agencies as a cluster. And then there might be something else that relates to our event catering business. So we'll talk about food and beverage as a cluster. And then there's general like entrepreneurial stories where it could be a catch-all. So we'll define personas, we'll define catch-all personas, and we'll define segmental personas. And a lot of people just don't realize that, well, hey, you're an agency guy. You could appear on a load of HR podcasts because you do recruitment, you do hiring, you hire, maybe you fire, there's all kinds of things. So I think that's something that people don't necessarily appreciate. And then it's just like time invested. I think that you can, of course, write intelligent cold emails, but you still need a bit of the human where you look up. What we do is we look at people's previous podcasts. I'll get shown some stuff, and or the team will look at some stuff, and I'll make mentions to it. And this is when you want to do it at scale. But then practically one-on-one, like anything, that's not news. One-on-one, reach out, personal, make a compliment works. And then as to the second point, which is, why should I bother? I think it relates to the second element that I personally don't use podcasts that I appear on as a mechanism to generate new leads, but it generates massive qualification and supporting conversions. What do I mean by that? We have, for example, leads that come in, and as part of their due diligence, they look for across the company to see if anyone or anything is active within the company. Nothing's better than video. Long form content like podcasts are really good. And I've had and have been told and been on calls where they say, oh, one of the things that differentiated Pearl Lemon was we watched a couple of your founders' podcasts and we admire his insert XYZ values, stories, journey. We could relate to him, and it felt like it was going to be a human company. And therefore, that was our buying decision. And what's interesting in the agency space, there's not a lot of people that are on podcasts. Like relative to the amount of actual agencies there are. So if you're, being compared as to one of XYZ companies, the reality is that these small things can help demonstrate distinction, because it will still be the case people by people. And if you're looking for an agency to bring on for your firm and you're like, oh, cool, you know what? I caught one of Deepak's videos with Josh. He seems like a really nice bloke. It carries you a hell of a long way. And I've had people say, oh, I read about your hair transplant, Deepak. And like hair transplant companies have signed on to us for SEO because they read one of my random blogs about a hair transplant. Another company that was a travel adventure company signed on because they saw me on a podcast talking about my failed British military experience. And it's not that I had a massive audience, but everyone's famous in the eyes of 5 to 10 people. And oftentimes those 5 to 10 people are the people that you're in a buying conversation with, because they're going to do their due diligence. And that's where you're able to track the uplift and revenue. So I'd look at it as a conversion rate optimization mechanism rather than a lead acquisition mechanism. And that's for me why I would continue to be on people's podcasts, because I understand that for the people that matter to me, they'll check out my podcast with you. And that's the people that I care about.
Awesome. I love that. And okay, so if we stick on lead gen, so you mentioned cold email there. What is Pearl Lemon's kind of best client acquisition channel at 2026, and how is AI changing that?
Yeah, sure. So the best client acquisition channel is Google and the LLMs, so recommendations and Google search. I think that obviously AI is massive. I know that we're going to talk about that. People just need to also just remember that Google is a massive moat. Like if you just look at the search comparatively, so don't look at growth, but look at like volume. And if you look at that across the board, then Google is still like king by a country mile, and that's not going to change for quite a while. And as you go down the order of kind of values, if you go away from people that are tech adopter curve, like evangelists, it's a very narrow part of the pyramid. If you go back towards the base, then Google's still massive. So I think that Google isn't going away. I think that people said that about many platforms: cold email, cold calling, automated messaging, and here we are. All of them still exist. So that's just kind of one point. I then say that when I talk about how our operating ethos is, I believe in the concept of more, better, new, which is Hormozy, I think, took it from someone else. But the concept is that if you're, for example, using SEO as a mechanism, do 10 times more SEO rather than trying to build new channels. Practically, what does that mean? It means that if you, for example, get an outsized return from a couple of keywords, let's just say a keyword is a podcast booking agency, right? Let's just say that's a keyword, which from Google Search Console gives you an outsized return. Build multiple websites dedicated on that one keyword. So when we go into a new niche, we build 4 websites every time. And we build 4 websites and we run an experiment, and then we identify what are the buying keywords, and then we double down on those keywords across all 4 websites. Our goal is to rank for one keyword, but in positions 1, 2, 3, 4, because that drives 80% of our revenue. So that's our version of doing more SEO. So Pearl Lemon will have 50 odd different websites that all are focused on maybe 10 niches. And so kind of that's kind of our mechanism, because I feel constrained or worried if I have one website, which is my moat. I'd rather have lots of small little islands that comparatively pick off, so I'm not subject to a collapse on one site, which I've seen with clients that we've taken on, and which I've seen in our instances where we've had one site, that site has got pinged for whatever reason, and we are down and out basically for a little bit. So that's kind of our mechanism for lead generation, the primary one, I'd say.
Awesome. I love that. And so let's say there's 4 websites that you go, and the plan of action, is it always to build from scratch, or are you looking at niche websites already in that space that you can acquire?
Yeah, we just build from scratch. We sometimes build like single page websites. So one example that I'd say is that we do event catering, one of our businesses, and within that niche, we observed that bubble tea catering was something that was relatively lucrative. So then we just built bubbleteacatering.uk, and that gives us 5 leads a month. We close one every 2 months, but then the value or contract value of one of those leads is anything from £3 to £10,000. So let's just assume it's in the middle, which is, let's just say 6 for an easy number. 6 times 6, because it's one every 2 months, is 36k upfront contract value without any referrals. Our cost to build that cost us probably about 300 quid. And then our cost of running it is about another 500 quid for the year, because we don't build high quality backlinks. We just build web 2.0s, web 3.0s, single page website, literally 5-page website. Maybe I think it's maybe like about us, contact us. So when I say single page, one page that we care about ranking, and that's what we'll do. We'll pick off sites and build exact match domains to help support the primary mothership, which in the context of event catering would be pearllemoncatering.com. But it's got like a satellite around it of sites that we kind of spin out based upon what we're seeing generates revenue. And that will broadly be the model that we'll operate.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, cool. Deepak, let's move on to AI, right? Yeah. So again, I feel like it's just crazy at the minute, OpenClaw, Claude Cowork, Claude Code, everything, by the time this comes out, they might be just old-fashioned names, which is how fast everything's moving at the minute. But I feel like I wouldn't say I'm struggling at it, but it's definitely a hard process. And what I'm chatting to a lot of other agency owners is trying to get your team to develop the same kind of passion and work ethic when it comes to AI, because like we need to be keeping up with it. Out of those 134 people that work with you, how many do you think are working with AI daily? Like, is it something that you guys cement into the SOPs? How are you dealing with that?
So I think that, of course, new initiatives in general need to be led by stakeholders in the business, because otherwise initiatives fail. And new initiatives need to be led at a process level and a mindset level. And probably I'd say mindset supersedes process. So if you're a decision maker, you've got to, like Churchill spoke about with war, you've got to win the hearts and minds of people before you just expect them to follow process absent understanding of the outcome. And you've got to, in order to drive outcome, you've got to ascribe personal meaning to process, because otherwise, why do I care? I clock in, I clock out. Yeah, all right, cool. I'm fine with my ChatGPT subscription, if I even do that, and I crack on. So I think that I would say for most company owners, as we grew, my biggest kind of switch in terms of learning was I need to win the war of hearts and minds rather than win the I need to rather than process, because I'd rather inspire someone to innovate themselves rather than try and drive innovation and bring them kicking and screaming up the hill, because as soon as I look away, they're going to roll right back down the hill and they're going to fall back upon past habits, because that's how humans are wired anyway. So you've got to inspire someone to want to drive change. So I think that that's really important. And a lot of, I think, agency owners probably don't, I would say, always read the right literature. You've got to read literature about people management, about inspiration, about motivation, because then process and tactics and strategy are a subset, because you give it to a motivated person who's just generally motivated, you get way more bang for your buck. And that then relates to hiring processes, because you need to have a hiring process that ultimately pulls out people that are highly motivated to begin with. So we hire for motivation. We don't hire for process or skill set. I hire for grit. Our application form is like 30 questions. It's super annoying. You have to record a long video. There's lots of little things you need to do along the way. It's very annoying to apply at Pearl Lemon, but because I hire for grit, because I want a particular mindset for people when they arrive at Pearl Lemon. And if they don't have that, they don't pass through. Now, coming to your point as to then how does that translate into how we drive it? So then, assuming that you've got that, then you drive it, you institutionalize it into process. And that comes from the stakeholder who carries weight. So practically what that means is I have defined some processes and I say, if you don't use these processes, then you're not going to be with Pearl Lemon long term. So then I have a zero sum approach saying, look, within 1 month, everyone needs to be using this. If you're not, you will be asked at the time that your salaries come up, because it's an expectation. It's not that we're not going to pay you, but I'm just letting you know we're going to ask about it. And the people that are self-motivated will do it on the one ask. The people that need more pushing will do it on the second or third ask. And the people that are kicking and screaming probably shouldn't be at your firm anyway. So you've got a recruitment problem, which means you've got a mindset problem, which means you've got a hiring problem. So that's kind of the way that I look at it.
I didn't think I'd love that answer as much as I just did. That was insane. I love the idea of going back and reading literature on that. Yeah, you've changed my paradigm when it comes to that as well. Really, really interesting. So, okay, so let's say you as a stakeholder, you go in, right, everybody needs to be using Claude Cowork for whatever it is. You said you've got that month. If you don't do it in the month, then we've got a problem. Are you guys having like training workshops at the company? Is the line manager kind of helping, or
Yeah,
what
sure.
way does that work?
So I think you need to also define what you want from AI. I think that people like have this nebulous concept that I just want to institute AI because it's what is in. And, before that it was AEO. That was the big thing. Now it's AI. And before AEO, it was ChatGPT. And then it was AEO. And now it's AI. So I think that people need to understand that like flavor of the month updates doesn't really work. And you need to do the hard yards of translating that into actionable tactics, because by default, people pick the shortest road to Rome, because that's how we're designed in terms of our physiological structure. So with that in mind, I think that you as the stakeholder need to also build processes to define how AI is to be used. So practically that would mean, great guys, we're no longer doing proposals and proposal generators such as Better Proposals or Google Docs or PowerPoint. We're using these AI generators like Gamma as an example. Right, guys, we're going from free ChatGPT to a ChatGPT business account, and we're going to set up projects and we're going to upload files, and this is going to be the process for how we like draw upon a client body of knowledge. Right, guys, we're going to use these series of Chrome plugins to do X, Y, Z. So I think that a lot of founders won't spend. What I find ironic is the inconsistency of how many founders will spend a hard 4 to 6 hours to figuring out how to make best use of AI, and how then another 4 to 6 hours how you implement it across your organization, and then you give people just processes. So then it's a case of, oh, I don't need to learn a new thing. I just need to like not even think about following this process. So you want to combine both. So you want, of course, a motivated people that want to do the learning, but also you want the learning to be led by whoever in the organization is the smartest guy in the room. And I think a lot of founders typically tend to be, if you're a company where you're not paying people more than 100K a year, founder will typically, if you're doing 6 figures, you'll ascribe to yourself, let's say 100K value, more or less. So that would logically mean, broadly, from a kind of innovative slash IQ, you're tending to be the highest operator in the room. So if you are not the one who's figuring out what that change is, you're going to get a diluted form of whatever the process is anyway. So actually, founders need to go back into the learning mindset and be like, right, I need to learn because I'm going to, and that was a mistake that I've made historically where I've given away processes to other people to think about it. But then it's like, well, Deepak, if you're the best thinker and you want to institute something across the org, probably you should actually think about what the process should be and how to define it and do the hard thinking. And I gave away development in the beginning, but then I understood that to scale it out, I probably need to take development back. So I'm the person. So for example, we spent, is it 25K, the highest lovable subscription? We have the highest lovable subscription. So I invested 30 grand up front to be like, right, I'm invested now. I've just ponied up 30 grand on doing this stuff. But that has been the change. That's the kind of monetary level that I need to care. Because it's like, right, I spent 30 grand when I couldn't have. I could have done other stuff, or I could have kept the money and spent it, weekend Mali with my mates. I was like, no, let me do it. And that led to the kind of 1,000 hours. So I think that a lot of founders probably aren't. If you're not doing that, then that's the problem, probably. Or if you're not the smartest guy in the room, obviously give it away to the smartest guy in the room. But if you're the smartest guy or gal in the room, you need to blimmin' do it. And if you're not motivated to do it, money that you commit to it, because when you pay attention. And that's how life is. That's the whole personal training industry in a nutshell, basically. So that, I think, for me, has been the big driver. And that's how we're driving institutional change, because I was like, right, how am I going to pay attention? Right, I'm going to spend 30 grand. Right, I care now. Cool, I'm going to learn. And it should be that me who's learning anyway, if I'm going to drive all of said change.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting, because what we're seeing from the hiring side of the view is we're seeing things like chief AI officer titles on the rise, and big corporations bringing in these guys, but they're bringing them in on like 250K salaries, basically to build out workflows. But what I think is so important about what you just said is, as the founder, you've got that seniority and judgment of like where your company's going. Whereas if you're bringing in a CAO or whatever they're calling them, like they have to start from scratch and understand the company from like day one to then build in these workflows. Whereas the founders that I'm seeing are getting so frustrated at the rest of the team not building enough, AI and learning as much. And I feel like the founder needs to be in that seat on the era that we're kind of going in at the minute. So I think that's really important what you just said.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, one of our big goals for 2026 is we're going to replace every single tool that we pay for with AI built tools. So I want to kill all. So then I was motivated to, how do I buy back my 30 grand? So as an example, we pay 250 quid a month for You Can Book Me, which is a calendar booking system. So I went into Claude and I was like, oh, can I rebuild this using, and they were like, yeah. I was like, how long will it take? They're like, yeah. I'm like, brilliant. What's my goal? Even if you don't want to use it to drive revenue, you can use it to kill subscription costs. So we're slowly killing. So we killed our Ahrefs subscription because I built my own rank tracker. Because I was like, I don't want to spend 2 grand, whatever it is that we're spending. We're paying for Ahrefs and SEMrush. We're spending maybe 10, 15. I don't know what we were spending, but it was more than 10 grand a year. And I was like, can I build an approximation of this that does? And they're like, if you don't want the bells and whistles, yes. So then you can attach basically your drive to learn AI with incentives that carry business impact. So that's what we're doing. So I totted up our spend, and it was like north of 60, 70 grand a year. And I was like, right, I'm going to kill everything with AI. And we've now replaced, we've not replaced, but for what we need, we've replaced it. Because the guys are like, we just want active rank tracking for thousands of keywords. All of the other stuff we can get from the LLMs, Deepak, like the review, like the lookups with Manus and Claude and Grok for technical issues, and there's other tools. We just care about massive rank tracking. And I was like, oh, okay. If that's all we're using, I could probably rebuild that. What do you know? I can. So if the first one is an incentive, that's the way that you can contextualize it. And that's kind of what we're doing at Pearl Lemon to drive a change.
Awesome. I love that. And that's kind of what you're seeing across the board, that software is going to zero. And then as well as that, it means that you can, like, I don't know about you, but there's never been one software where I'm like 10 out of 10 happy with. It's always, I want this feature, I want to remove that feature. You can do that if it's your own software.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have an org and you force people to use your tool, you get massive user feedback, because then they start complaining. And then that's how you drive really good change with what you build. So no, I couldn't agree more, man. I think it's the way to go.
And so let's say your clientele that are coming on calls with you guys, and they're talking about AI, and they're talking about, well, maybe they're not talking about it, but let's say they are. Like, why do I need SEO down the line? Can't ChatGPT do it for me? Where do you see most companies kind of going wrong with that, or what advice do you give when something like that does happen?
Yeah, sure. So I think that if it's in the context of a sales call, I think that AI. So in terms of the internet age, like search will not go away. It's just that the mechanism search is diluting, of course, because people are using different vehicles to do search. So really what we're talking about primarily is people that talk about Google search and people that have built businesses entirely off of Google search. And I think there's a lot of noise in terms of course, how that is being diluted, or search share has been taken away by the LLMs. So I think that for the customers that come on that ask, do you think we should still be investing in this? For me, the answer is always going to be a resounding yes. It's why cold email hasn't gone away. It's why cold calling. We signed a client. I can't say that. I probably can't say the name of the client. They're a competitor to like TikTok, but they paid us 30 grand for the first quarter to do cold calling. They're like, oh, cold call, and people are like, oh, cold calling doesn't work. But like, guys, we got like $250,000 in billing from cold calling, because people say, oh, cold calling is the best thing since sliced bread. So I don't think that these things are going away. I think it's easy to get caught up in the noise. Of course, it's advantageous to be aware and to build things with the new kind of island in mind. The good thing is, for all of the search agencies, I think you've got all of this inbuilt knowledge from Google search you can carry over to the LLMs. So you're going to kick asses of the guys who are coming up with no Google knowledge, and they're just going straight for the LLMs. And they're like, right, I know how to rank on LLMs using this new Reddit strategy that's been around because it's been parasite SEO or whatever for like years. So I'm not worried by it at all. And I think that there's still tons and tons of businesses that are incorporating or yet to be in existence or are growing quickly that still have Google as part of their arsenal. It's the equivalent of saying, oh, if you're in e-commerce, why bother doing SEO? You just do paid. Like, that argument is circled for years, but what do you know? Companies want to cover all platforms. So the big businesses will never ignore Google search, because they'll say, right, we want to do stuff with the LLMs, but I'm a business owner and I understand that I need to cover Google as well. So I think that, of course, education is important, statistics, but I think that a lot of it is communicating confidently, actually, because most people are carried by the conviction with which you say things, much less so than what it is that you say. And that was a lesson that I learned early on in my sales career. Is like, man, if you just sound convincing, people will believe anything. If you just and of course, that doesn't mean that you should lie, but it was a lesson that I carried with me from reading a lot of sales literature, that like self-conviction is 80% of convincing when it comes to a pitch. You and I can read from the same blooming script. People can have a totally different experience of it just by listening to how we position, like how we say what we say. It's like, instead of, I really think you should do this, Josh. Like, Josh, you need to do this. Like, you really need to do this, mate. Like, completely different kind of aura. So, and again, a lot of agency owners, mate, they don't read sales books. They don't look at, like, there's a lot of things that as Brits we can take from American sales style, because you infuse that into the British kind of reserve, and it's very easy to differentiate yourself. And that's something that I learned early on as well. If you read like Jordan Belfort and when he talks about emotionality and selling, it's like this incredible like 9-minute thing that I saw on YouTube. Everything was about tonality. Everything's about tonality, because us Brits, we say like, I love you, babes, the same way as we say, can you get me the milk? Oh yeah, I love you, babes. Can you get me the milk? You like, and when you think about it logically, that's kind of screw. So. I'll kind of stop there. But ironically, I think it's about conviction more than it is anything else, because I'm not telling you anything that's new. I don't really think that I am, but the way that you convey it goes a long way. And I think a lot of, especially British people, us or Aussies by proxy, Commonwealth countries, we do a bad job of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Awesome. Deepak, moving on to speaking gigs, right? You've done, I think it's 3 TED Talks. You've spoken at some big events before. What has that done for your brand, or is it kind of the same angle that you take with the podcast, where it's, you know, you're trying to get your name out there so that people that do care come back and kind of do research on that? Or yeah, what's the goal behind that?
Yeah, I think that certain platforms carry a level of credibility that others don't. So TEDx has gotten us deals and got me into rooms that maybe I had no right to be, just because they saw the brand, the sticker, because of what it's that halo effect, right? So based upon the little that I know about your personality, I ascribe all of these other traits about who I think you probably are. So it's whole, you know, authority bias, perception bias. So I think there's particular platforms that are the path that people should tread, whatever business that they choose to spend time in with entrepreneurship. So for me, those are, you want to appear in Forbes, you want to appear in Entrepreneur, you want to appear in Inc., you want to appear on TED. There's probably several others, like in SEO. I was like, right, I've got to get Brighton SEO under my belt, because I've got to say I spoke at Brighton. So, and I've done it. I spoke at Brighton. And I was like, cool, tick. So I think that there's certain, like, people talk about, you know, the importance of labels, and there's like BS labels that appeared on Fox and CNN, and like, yeah, mate, that's like PR and newswire distribution nonsense. Don't get me wrong, it's all relative to who your audience is, because for some people it's like, wow, amazing, and it might be PR this. So and again, TEDx isn't TED, and people that understand. So I would say that it's the little small island effect that we speak of rather than the moat. So I think the whole ethos, and sorry if you can hear my dog going crazy in the background, it's a whole ethos of, I think, like little and often, and little and often compounds over time. So I did podcasts where I appeared on podcasts for a period of about a year and a half, where I did maybe 100 podcasts I appeared on. And then I was like, right, I'm kind of tired now. And then I stopped for a good 5-7 years. And I look back and I realize I need to go again, to do this run, because of the ephemeral effect it has. So yeah, it is kind of more of the same, but there's so many nuances to anything when you get into more of the same, because it's not the same when you look at it, of course, as we know. So that's where it's that whole principle of, you know, they call it doubling down. But you'll discover that there's like levels that you are otherwise unaware of. Like us, if we play chess, and the amount of moves, if you're a grandmaster, that you have in your head versus I have in my head. We're playing from the same rule book, but you've got a totally different framework for success in your mind that I'm not even aware of, that I don't know even exists. And that's what happens when you choose to kind of beat down the door on a consistent basis over time. And that's where I think people, you know, develop like mechanisms that are hard to articulate, because of the 1,000 hours you put in over time to say, you know what, there's hundreds and thousands of nuances I couldn't articulate to you in a 20-minute conversation, because of course it's just the game. So yeah, it's definitely been helpful, I think, for some of the reasons I mentioned.
Awesome. I love that. Right. We're going to finish with 3 rapid fire questions. So first one, Deepak, is what AI tool can you not live without right now?
It would be whisper.ai. So I use it to talk to a lot of different tools. So Whisper AI, I think right now I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I've put so many of my friends and the team onto Whisperflow. It is insane. I genuinely, like, without overhyping it, I genuinely think I bought back like 10 hours a week. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Awesome. And next one for you is what do you think is overhyped in AI that agency owners are wasting money on right now?
I think that trying to purely rank for the LLMs is short term, because it will mature in terms of ranking incredibly quickly, and the LLMs will develop their own ranking algo and catch things up. So I think in pure play focus on LLM ranking, I think if you're quick and you've got distribution already, then it's a good short term cash grab. If you don't have distribution, i.e., active client base that you could sell it into, then I think that it's an arms race to the bottom. So I would say that go for LLM ranking if you have distribution. If you don't have distribution, I think you're wasting your time.
Okay, cool. Right. So I'm going to switch that the other way around then. What's the most underrated thing that nobody's talking about right now?
The most underrated thing with AI or in general? Okay. Yeah. The most underrated thing is, I think that determining what channel you're going to use to scale your business. So there's such a big play right now about personal brand, but I think the personal brand is a trap. I think the personal brand becomes a machine that you have to feed, and it attaches you, not detaches you from your business. So in growing your personal brand, your company loses enterprise value and it doesn't become a sellable asset. And it means that you need to keep feeding the brand. So the more you can detach yourself and become invisible to your company, the more you can increase enterprise value of your company. So don't build your personal brand.
Wow. Never heard that one before. Awesome. Right. My last one for you is agency owners that have listened to this. What's one thing that they can walk away with and do tomorrow?
This is going to be ironic. You can build your personal brand, if you like, by getting onto podcasts, because there comes a point where it will service you, but then it will disservice you if it's a requirement for you to be part of the conversation. So it's a good way to help convert. And what you really need it for is cash flow, because to detach yourself from to detach your personal brand efforts from building your company via lead gen efforts, you need money in the bank to pay for different things. So to get that cash personal brand does work, but then there needs to be a cutting off point. So I'd say podcasts are fantastic as a mechanism for conversions, but then at some point, depending upon the kind of business you want to build, you need to detach yourself, because if you want to be at the mercy of the algos, then yeah, build your LinkedIn profile. By all means, write the status updates. I don't want to do it. Get a ghostwriter. You still need to do it. Do your videos. But you'll see, and that was what happened to me early on, how it becomes a problem. And you're like, I don't want to do it anymore. I want to go and sit on my farm and raise my chickens and do sod all for like 3 months and not worry about the latest change in the algo for what carousel updates are on LinkedIn. I don't give an F, to be honest with you. It was all a game anyway. Amazing. You probably know now that you need to change the way you're thinking about building your business, because that, my friend, is a trap. I know many big influencers who are broke, or many big influencers who are showing screenshots of their best months, and they're making way less than that because they're trapped by the algo.
Awesome. I love it. Deepak, where can people follow along for more of that wisdom?
I write very inconsistently, so months on, many months off, at deepakshukla.com. So you can find my inconsistent writings over at deepakshukla.com and Pearl Lemon, of course, if you want to have a look at what we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're an agency owner that is wanting to scale and wants to continue bringing your business to new heights and doesn't want to put everything on pause for hiring and finding the best talent that's out there in SEO and paid media, well, that's something I can help with. I own a recruitment company that has specialized in both the SEO and paid media sector, and we work with 100+ businesses. So I'm going to leave 2 links below. There's no big pitch here, but if you want to talk over strategy and hiring and how myself and my team can find you the best A-player talent in both the SEO and paid media sector, then please book in, and I look forward to talking to you. Thank you.